Story 1. The man who thought he could try heroin and prove that he would not get addicted became addicted, and his life was in ruins. He left his profile up as a warning. Story 2. The one who would always have sex to the tempo of this awful song. I forget the name of the song. Someone help me out. Story 3. That man whose wife had an affair with his neighbor and killed his children because he wanted a divorce after many years. Story 4. The person who helped me with my recreational vehicle water heater saved the trip. He went back and forth with me 10 times. Just an awesome person. It makes you remember that most people are kind. The unpleasant ones are the ones who get attention. Story 5. The poor lady who found out her husband had a feces fetish when she caught him burying his face in their child's diapers. She promptly left him, of course, but I cannot forget that one because taking a fetish that far, to involve your child, is beyond horrifying. I wonder how that lady is doing, and I always feel bad for the child because their father ruined any chance they had of a normal life together. It took so much strength on the original poster's part, but I love that in the end she did the right thing and protected her baby. Story 6. There was a man who fell on the stairs and broke most of his front teeth during the peak of the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic when all the dental offices were closed. He posted his situation on Reddit, and I still wonder how things turned out for him 5 years later. Story 7. A man who stole his newborn daughter's college fund to get scammed into buying his first car, an old Bronco. A girl whose boyfriend makes her eat Mentos and drink cola, so she gets inflated because he has a blueberry fetish, and he closes his eyes and pretends she is a blueberry anyway. Story 8. The man who thought someone was breaking into his apartment and leaving sticky notes everywhere. One of the replies told him to check his carbon monoxide levels. It turned out his heater was causing carbon monoxide poisoning. Reddit helped save his life. Story 9. There was a thread years ago on Actual Lesbians about a woman who was riding her bike and got sideswiped by a female driver. The driver stopped, took her to the hospital, stayed while she was treated, drove her home, and then showed up a day or two later with takeout. The last update I remember was a year or two later. They were dating and living together. How did you two meet? Oh, the usual. She tried to run me over and kill me. Story 10. The woman with 2 vaginas reserved one for her sex work clients and the other for her boyfriend. Story 11. The man thought his landlord or someone was sneaking into his house and leaving creepy notes, but it turned out to be carbon monoxide poisoning. Story 12. Watching live videos of the Itaewon Halloween crowd crush in real time was terrifying. I stopped following the public freakout subreddit for a while after that. Story 13. The guy who was trying all kinds of suggestions to eat with rice. The part one loved the most was bubblegum. That thread must be 10 years old by now. Story 14. Part of me wishes I had saved it, but my mental health is better because I have not. A man posted on one of the grooming and appearance subreddits asking for tips because women think he is crazy. Black mold was visible in the background of his photos. Not just a little bit, approximately 3 times the amount seen in similar cases involving mold exposure. Commenters rightfully informed him that black mold is harmful to physical and mental health. I made the mistake of reviewing his post history. It was not just mold. He had active bug and rat infestations. He kept them all because they were his pets, including the mold, and he felt bad killing anything. My brother on Reddit, women think you are crazy because you are crazy. Story 15. The man who allowed his wife to severely abuse their son and then moved to the basement of their house. Story 16. The mother asked the man who was in an incestuous relationship with her, with approval from his father. Story 17. The story where a man slowly realized his quirky wife was poisoning him with essential oils in his food, and everyone in the comments said, "Dude, you are being murdered in high definition," still haunts me. Story 18. I will never forget the thread on the Elder Trees forum after Hillary Clinton's emails were leaked. It was all about how she wanted to drug test every child in the country. If you looked at the email, it was clear she wanted to train teachers to recognize signs of addiction in children, not conduct drug testing. You would expect the Elder Trees community to not fall for this misinformation, but they did. That was when I knew Donald Trump would win. Story 19. That man whose power went out at the exact moment he defecated, so he spent the next 5 minutes crying because he thought he had defecated himself blind. Story 20. The post where the sister's boyfriend thought marinara was the Italian word for red, and then people on the subreddit kept referencing the post for months, saying marinara flag instead of red flags. Story 21. Swamps of Dagoba, thanks to another user. I couldn't remember what it was called. The nurse told the story of the patient getting vomit all over the emergency ward in the middle of the night and how it was the worst smelling thing she had ever experienced. Story 22. The man who was in love with Agtha and the man who had an affair with Kbat, ruining his relationship. For those who have not read either Agtha, Bat, Story 23, 14 years ago, and it still helps people. Grief, Story 24. I do not remember the exact title, but it was something like, I need someone to shoot me in the head, preferably right next to my temple, and with a gun type. I forgot what the original poster said. Story 25. I emailed a teacher to say thank you, and he posted it on Facebook saying, I really needed this. What is something you have said or done that you did not expect to have such a big impact? This thread is the chicken soup for the soul of Reddit. Heartwarming, uplifting stories. Great to read if you are having a bad day and losing faith in humanity. I cannot resist sharing this one too. What conversation or interaction with a physically normal stranger left you wondering if you had just talked to something non-human or supernatural, like an angel, demon, ghost, alien, or time traveler? That thread is a gold mine of writing prompts if you want it to be. Story 26. The story is about a man who asked for legal advice because he kept finding strange post-it notes around his apartment. He suspected his landlord was playing tricks on him. However, it was later discovered that he had a carbon monoxide leak and was hallucinating the entire situation. Story 27. I think this was deleted, but I remember a post where, when the original poster was a kid, he was poor and for Christmas his mother would give him coal and say, you must have been a bad kid to get coal from Santa instead of presents. Just think of the one bad thing you did the past year, and don't do it again. Of course, the next year, the kid, who hoped to get presents, received coal again. I know the mother was trying to encourage good behavior and cover up their poverty, but this had a major unintended consequence. The kid realized, there are other kids who get bad grades or talk back, yet they get presents. Even though I am trying to be good, I must be worse than them. Additionally, having your mother say, you must have done something bad, so don't do it again, sounds like decent advice to prevent repeating a bad deed, until you think for a moment and realize, what did I do? I can't think of anything bad I did in the past year. You may then come up with something relatively minor, like lying about brushing your teeth, or remember being falsely accused of something, such as falsely being told you lied about brushing your teeth when you actually did. Since Santa is all-seeing and all-knowing, he would know you weren't lying. You shouldn't get coal at Christmas because you were falsely accused. This is why I don't like the idea of parents or teachers punishing kids without telling them what they did wrong. How can you expect a child to improve behavior if the child doesn't know what they did wrong in the first place? Especially if the child was not intentionally breaking any rule, or if the child cannot think of any rule they might have accidentally broken. In the post, apparently the mother was abusive in addition to giving coal at Christmas, so it's not as if she was a good parent making a misguided decision to encourage better behavior. Story 28. The Boston Marathon bombing suspect committed suicide because of online detectives revealing his personal information. He was innocent. Story 29. The one that ended with the golden knowledge nugget. If you are not the person disrespecting your wife, someone else will. Gotta love the internet. Story 30. Worst deaths people have witnessed. Funky Town was mentioned along with some other absolutely horrific stories. Story 31. One time I was told by a rheumatologist that I had an autoimmune disease called mixed connective tissue disease. I went to a mixed connective tissue disease group to talk about it. One man, who was active on the thread, insisted that I needed to get my COVID-19 vaccine. This was in late 2021. I said, my immune system is attacking everything. I don't think that will help right now. That is the complete opposite of what the doctor says I need to do. He kept insisting. It turned out I was misdiagnosed and did not have mixed connective tissue disease. I returned to the group to share my good news and encourage them to get second opinions. This person responded again, saying, I know this one person who, and continued to tell me I needed to get the vaccine to prevent mixed connective tissue disease from occurring. His medical misinformation was ridiculous. Of course, as they often do, he went into attack mode and said I was being selfish. Story 32. The one where someone asked, what is a seemingly small decision that changed your whole life? I still think about some of those answers. Story 33. A long time ago, there was a post about someone asking if she and her children could be bought a pizza. When you reviewed her post history, it showed 2 months of heartache. Her husband was abusing her, and when he began abusing their children, she left him. She was having a very hard time finding a job and a stable place to stay. She also struggled with the poor public services in Orlando and had no support from either her family or his family. All she asked for was a pizza, which she received. I often wonder how things turned out for her. Story 34. The lady whose husband had some pus-filled sore on his leg that she cleaned and dressed every day for 5 years. He refused to go to the doctor. I told her to do a telehealth appointment, but I vowed never to let a partner take advantage of me like that. His leg can rot. Story 35. This woman, who was newly pregnant, found out her husband had been having an affair with her high school bully. She divorced him and simply told him she fell out of love, refusing to give the bully the satisfaction of destroying her. The husband was devastated and had no way to seek accountability or forgiveness. I still wonder how she is doing and what became of their co-parenting relationship. He never admitted the affair, but the bully did text her about it afterward. The original poster was indifferent. I really do think about this woman all the time. Story 36. No one has mentioned the Ask a Rapist thread. Terrible content was posted there. It was so bad that every comment was deleted and many people were banned. Story 37. The subreddit Yay Video Games lives rent-free in my head, and I get very sad every time I see something about him. Story 38. More than the subreddit, the Boston Marathon bomber case showed a stunning display of arrogance and incompetence from this site, thinking they could crowdsource solving an act of terrorism. Story 39. There was a man who had a devil's threesome with his wife. He was into the idea, and his wife let him have the final say on who the other man would be. It was between an older man and a younger man. The original poster was a little older, so he picked the younger man. His rationale was that the younger man was probably less experienced and likely could not last. No one wants to be shown up in bed in front of their wife, he was sure. He was very wrong. The original poster said the young man had no refractory period. He would go, finish, then go, finish, and go again without any break in between, and the original poster could not keep up at all. He was full of regret. I truly felt bad for him. If I had to guess, that man now lives full-time in their house and sleeps on the original poster side of the bed. The original poster sleeps in his child's room. Story 40. The man who claimed that he would shoot someone if he received a certain number of likes posted his location and a photo. 30 minutes later, a shooting at the exact same place was reported. Luckily, nobody was killed, but I believe 2 people were shot. Story 41. A woman was upset because her pregnant coworker was ungrateful about a baby shower at the workplace. Then, the pregnant woman who did not want the baby shower also posted on Reddit about how insensitive a woman at her job was for insisting on throwing her a baby shower when it was against her religion or culture. It turned out that the pregnant woman had grounds to take legal action against the first woman. I have never seen anything like it since. Story 42. I know I shouldn't have, but in a state of mourning, I looked at my former best friend's Reddit karma. Under a post asking about mental health, they stated that they are not doing well as they are trying to end things with a toxic friend. Hello, I am that toxic friend. When I say toxic, I mean they told me to defend myself when I was being bullied. So, when the whole school started spreading horrific lies about me that are too terrible to say out loud, I screamed at one of the boys spreading them. Story 43. The woman could not understand why her husband suddenly turned his life around overnight because of psilocybin mushrooms. Story 44. I recall a discussion where medical professionals were asked about the wildest medical situation they had encountered, where they couldn't believe someone was still standing. I remembered a really sad story about a young woman who arrived with severe abdominal pain. When they operated, they found her abdomen filled with putrid fluid, and she crashed. The fluid was the only thing maintaining her blood pressure, as her organs had failed. Story 45. I think it is still my single most upvoted post. I tossed an idea into the writing prompts subreddit about tricking the devil into being your loving wife or girlfriend for the rest of your life. The range of stories people wrote was immense. There was a goofy, almost anime-style devil has no idea how Earth works story. There was a fetish barely disguised behind, there are many forms of love, you know? There was a long, detailed story about the devil actually taking care of the main character and seeing him grow from an awkward teenage nerd into an adult man who then died and was sentenced to an eternity in hell, thus reuniting him with his love. There was a story about a man who was dying on a winter night, and instead of salvation, he asked the devil to keep him company in his last hours. The talent and variety I saw in those comments were incredible, all from a single prompt. Story 46. One of my favorite threads to read was one of the early, "What secret are you keeping?" kind of things. The stories there were wild. I spent hours reading through. Story 47. My father sacrificed his long-held dream of owning a bike to get us this personal computer. Although this is a post in an Indian subreddit and I am not qualified to comment there, I had the same reaction when I read a thread titled, "What experiences did you have when you were poor?" I thought, oh boy, this makes any complaint I have look like the worst first world problem. Story 48. The thread that brought me to Reddit in the first place was shared on Twitter. It was a thread of creepy things kids had said to their parents, such as, "You are much nicer than the other mommy I had before I went through the light." Story 49. When the original poster was a kid, he made a mustard sandwich with no meat and was asked to share it with a little kid who then freaked out because there was no meat in the sandwich. The adults now accuse the original poster of taking the meat out of the meatless sandwich and eating it himself. When the kid tries to explain that he did not take any meat because there was no meat in the first place, the adults call him a liar. A kid is getting s'mores on a trip and is told by an adult to sit somewhere. The kid says, "Okie dokie." The adult yells, "Do not ever curse again." Even though the kid tries to explain, "I just said okie dokie." The adult does not believe him, being falsely accused of doing something bad because of a misunderstanding when I absolutely did not do the bad thing, especially if it is physically impossible for me to have done it, and being called a liar when trying to explain that I did not do it is something I think about sometimes. I can see myself suddenly being accused of saying something bad when I said something completely clean, or being accused of taking pictures of people with my phone when I was just looking something up. I made it worse by telling the truth and denying it, but nobody believes me. I can see this escalating until I am punished for something I absolutely did not do. Story 50. The person who tried datura. I do not want to see the aftereffects of what happened to them, but reading that thread gave me chills. As a pagan and a lover of nature, I know what that plant can do to you and it is not pretty. I hope they are okay. Story 51. Ask a registered sex offender. Since I have met federal-level workers who have worked on child sexual abuse material cases, I was not surprised those Reddit users were reliving their crimes via questions and answers. I was surprised that they felt so comfortable on Reddit. That means they are searching this site for new targets. Story 52. Not safe for work. A man used an empty shoebox for an inappropriate purpose, and eventually mushrooms started to grow. This is one of the most disgusting things I have ever seen. Story 53. Not really years, only been here for a year, but I have been thinking about the steak window story a lot. Story 54. There was a sadistic girl who was draining her blood using an intravenous needle and considered it a fetish. Still haunts me. Story 55. That guy who took heroin for the first time and chronicled his journey, the user was spontaneous or something like that. Story 56. People are discussing the possibility of donating their bodies to neutrophiliacs in the same way others donate to science. Story 57. The individual who transformed himself by caring about shrimp and became a happier person with a better life. Story 58. The story is about a girl who was posting on Reddit about having a crisis or nightmare. She was stuck in a time loop or something in her bathroom, but could not find a way out except to post updates until her phone died. I know it is fictional, but I think about it often. Story 59. I still make it a point to educate everyone on Reddit who mentions the poop knife post that it is an urban legend. It is not as popular as other urban legends, but when I read the original post, it was almost word for word the same story I heard in the early 1990s. Story 60. The story of a man's experience with a poor quality contractor. He has a great writing style and revenge is satisfying. Later, his wife updates to say he passed away. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.